Welcome to the App Advisory Show, your fortnightly dose of all things cloud accounting, apps, and app advisory.
Hey folks, thanks a lot for joining this session at the App Advisory Summit. So I'm going to be running through with Jo Royle of BHP about staying on top of the ecosystem. Hi Jo.
Hello.
How you doing? Okay?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
All good, all good. So we seem to be a lot of online sessions, and it's good to do these short, sharp sessions. So we wanted to run through this really because there's a lot of concern about the ecosystem and how big it's grown, how you stay on top of it. So as somebody who's been heavily involved in the ecosystem and cloud accounting for a number of years, I thought it'd be really useful to get some insights for you that the other firms and of accountants and bookkeepers can hopefully take some tips and tricks as to what's helped you. But before we start, Jo, let's hear a little bit about you and your history.
Yeah, so my name's Jo Royle and I work for BHP Accountants. At the moment I'm managing a team that does cloud accounting, and we do everything from management accounts, bookkeeping, VAT returns, forecasts, and app advisory as well.
Okay, brilliant. And have you found it quite an exciting sort of role, getting more involved in the cloud stuff?
Definitely. Now it's being sort of pushed across the whole board, so we want the whole accounts team to be aware of the cloud as well, and we're using Zero work papers for our year-end pack, so it is definitely a great place to be at the moment, and like you say, quite exciting.
Good, right. So how long have you been involved in the cloud?
So it's been about 4 years since I came back into practice. I worked in practice before, and then I had a few years in industry. And when I came back into practice, immediately I noticed that things were not how I'd left them. So I went from Sage Desktop out into industry, back to practice, and then started hearing about QuickBooks and Xero. So yeah, about 4 years.
Perfect. And when you came back in from industry into practice, could you see how this cloud world could help the industry? Having seen, now you know more of it sort of 4 years on, could you think how that could be applied back in the industry to the businesses?
At the beginning it was quite difficult because, like a lot of people, I were a bit stuck in my ways. I was still quite young, but I you know, it's hard to change. So you think, well, this is what I did before, how's this going to help me? But it does take a little bit of a change of mindset, but once you start using the software, then you can definitely see how much it helps.
Brilliant. Okay. And what did you first sort of see in terms of cloud accounting? What were the first vendors you came across? Or because you mentioned Sage Desktop, you knew that world, and then you came to this cloud. And what sort of apps did you first start to see as well?
So QBO, QuickBooks Online, was the first one that I started using. And then our firm merged with another firm who were heavily involved within Xero, so that came into my life as well. And in terms of apps to begin with, we just started with Receipt Bank really, and that was the first one that I used. I don't think probably in the first year I didn't really touch any of the apps. I was just getting used to QBO and Xero and Receipt Bank. Yeah,
well, that's a good start, to be perfectly honest. Getting those things nailed, as we've discussed a few times. Okay, perfect. So in those 4 years, how much has the ecosystem grown since you've been involved?
Yeah, massively. Obviously there's hundreds and hundreds of apps now, but I probably were more aware of them. So, you know, even though there were a few hundred when I first started, now there's, how many is there now?
I think it's over 900. I wouldn't be surprised if they'll be announcing 1,000 in the next 12 months.
And everybody knows about, well, most people know about the cloud now. You don't have to explain to a client what cloud accounting is, or you don't have to explain to another software provider, well, I'm going to put them on Xero. They already know. So it's, you know, it has grown massively.
Yeah, and I think with the ecosystem, we're seeing other ecosystems as well. So if you look at like Stripe or Go Cardless, they've got a little ecosystem. Certainly like Shopify, they've got their ecosystem. So it's not just one now. I think like Xero was a good starter, and QBO brought theirs out, and I think Sage have got a little bit of one. I think at the moment now it's going to be those are the ones that are listed on their ecosystems. There's also get my teeth in, also thousands of others which can link in with these systems, but just haven't gone through the formal marketplace set up and adoption. So I think we'll see a lot more of those, won't we?
Yeah, like apps to sit in between apps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably as well, certainly in some sort of sector niches, I think there'll be apps which aren't on any ecosystem, but those sectors are well aware of and can use. And I think we'll see more of the clients coming to us with, I've got this, it says it connects with Xero, can you check that? But I think, would you say in your experience that not all integrations are equal? So somebody might say, I'll integrate with this system. And I think we expect all the integrations to be of a certain quality, but sometimes that's not the case, is it?
Yeah, there is still some clunky systems to work out. There's always usually a workaround, but yeah, I don't think they all flow as well as some of the others do, some of the other more established apps.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's so yeah. There's been a big evolution. We'll probably be talking about thousands of them in the next 5 years. So interesting to see. Okay. So what methods do you and the firm use to keep on top of the ecosystem? I know we've met at a couple of roadshows and things like that, and some of the exhibitions. But what's been useful for you guys to stay on top of the ecosystem?
Yeah, we've found the roadshows. We've been to XeroCon, Accountex, QB Connect. We have found those really helpful because you've got them all on offer and you can wander around and find out what different apps there are and what they do. We're lucky as well that we've got a few teams in different offices doing the same thing. So we're all doing cloud accounting and we've got Microsoft Teams, so we share things on there. Somebody might put a post on to say, a client's asking for this, has anybody used it? And getting internal recommendations that I find really helpful. We do internal training as well. So we've got the Advisory Academy, so we can share ideas there. I like your Facebook group actually, because if I'm ever thinking, if a client's asked me for something and I want to do some research, you can search for a few words and there'll be all sorts of posts come up and people can give their own opinion when they've tried something out. So I really like using that. And Xero, the app marketplace, I go on there quite a bit because it's good. It's got them in specific industry apps, and so you can run through there and see what's on offer. So those methods we find helpful, and sharing with other firms as well. So when we have the app advisory discussions, like you ask what people have been doing for the past couple of weeks and they said, oh, well, we've used this, we've used that. For example, I think someone on there said that they'd used Datadia for Excel reporting. So then I went and bought a few licenses from Datadia, which we've started using now. So that's helpful.
Yeah, it's because there's loads of different problems and sometimes it'll be solved by the same app, or it's just maybe there's an app there that you know about, but you just maybe lost the track that I could actually use that. It just goes out of sometimes out of your mindset that that's something you could use, and sometimes other people just jog your memory. Oh, I could actually go and use that, and that would be a good option. And just on that, when we were talking about keeping on top of that, it's interesting. You've got two methods really within BHP. You've got a group that which stay on top of it, sort of external to the firm, but then you're also spending time internally educating people who need to be aware of these types of solutions, not necessarily to an in-depth degree, but certainly as awareness that these could help some of our clients.
Exactly.
Did you do that from the off, or was that something that you've realised you've had to grow?
No, it's been quite recent as that. Like you say, some of the people on the Advisory Academy don't need to know the detail of the apps. I mean, even I can't know the detail of all of the apps. But it's just to have the awareness so that if somebody notices that a client has got a problem, they can think, well, there could be something to help them with that. There might be an app for that. And then they know who to speak to internally as well to get things moving.
Yeah. And that you said it across different offices. In terms of what you do in sort of leading, is there two or three of you? Like, how does that work with your firm?
Yeah, so we've got a manager in each office for the cloud teams, and we've got our own group, and then we've got a group, for the full team. So we do come together quite often, and we're in touch quite often. So it works well with us, even though we're in separate offices or sometimes at home these days. It does work quite well.
About 300 separate offices, I imagine now. Okay. And I think this is an interesting one because I think up front, I always feel there's a lot of time investment in getting to know this world. A bit like you said, because got to get to know the basics initially of like a Xero, a QBO, a receipt bank, and just get to know that software to a level. And then there comes this app ecosystem. Like, how much time do you think you've invested over the last 4 years in sort of learning this stuff and trying to keep abreast of it? Because I think this is useful. I think some firms think that we'll sign up to a partnership with one of the cloud vendors, and then all of a sudden this will be here. So I think it's worth realising a bit of a project to get to a point of knowing, like you say, enough to answer some questions, but not going overboard that you know every single function of every single app that's ever come up. So just be interesting to hear how you guys have sort of invested your time.
Yeah, I mean, to start with, my role within cloud was cloud conversion, and that was for a couple of years, but now it's changed into cloud conversion and managing the cloud team. It all comes together. So before, when it was just cloud conversion, I had more time to do the research and to learn things, but now we're so busy, which is great, we need to weigh up between doing the work and helping the clients and looking at new apps or learning about new features, because obviously they're always being updated as well. And I think one of the points that you made about the inventory apps, where how much time your guys actually spend learning about the new features, like there's no way that we could devote enough time to that, which is why we have to rely on relationships with people like you and Guy, so that we can draw on that knowledge. But we do still spend quite a lot of time. So we watch the Xero product updates together. If anybody notices something new, then we'll talk about it within the team. We've got quite a lot. We get a lot of promotional emails in, so we go online and watch demos of apps that we've heard about or that we think clients might find useful. So whereas it's not physical attendance at boot camps and roadshows anymore, we've still got all that going on in the background, and we dip in and out of it and try to keep our knowledge up.
Yeah, and I think the challenge as well, isn't it, is if you've got, like you mentioned, the quarterly updates that the cloud accounting vendors do, there's also, like, and I don't think anyone's actually nailed this yet, but I think it's something we need to think about, is there's almost this maintenance of these systems, isn't there? Like, don't worry about apps. And if you've put a client on Xero and Receipt Bank, and actually that's all they need, and maybe some reporting out of the standard reporting, and that's all they need, they don't have any real business problems, which mean there's an app required. There's still a maintenance with them, because I think what we're seeing a lot of is someone's been put onto Xero in that scenario in 2017. There's been umpteen updates in that time, but no one's actually gone and told the client that there's a few updates, and it might only be 2 or 3 little things, but could be quite game changing for them. So I think there's a bit of a, as an accountancy professional, I think we've got to think about that. We get these updates from these vendors that are part of our core app stack. How do we start to then educate our existing clients that don't necessarily need any more, but just need to be kept abreast of the movements of these systems? Is that something that you sort of considered or thinking about?
Yeah, and I think it happens just through having the natural conversations with clients. So if we're doing the VAT return or we're doing the management accounts, it's easy for us because we're in constant communication. But for the ones where we don't do any work for them and they just do compliance at the year end, that's why it's good to educate everyone else in the team, because they're the ones who are going to contact them and have the discussion with them and ask them how they're doing. And now that actually we've put so many clients on cloud in the past couple of years, it's coming up to the year end now, and we've actually won some new work from that, because they've done the year end, they've said, it were a load of rubbish what they'd done on that, or it were all right, but they've got these questions and they're not sure how to do this. So we can come in then and help them and offer them like maybe a quarterly management account service, and it helps. It's great for us because it's new business, good for the client because they're happier with the system that they're using, and good for the year end team because they know that when it comes to year end next time, it's going to be a lot better.
Yeah, I think this is where there's direct return on investment from knowing the apps and knowing the cloud world. There's also indirect, I think, because it can be that, as you say, if you're doing that, let's call it a digital health check or a Xero review, whatever, QBO review at the year end, and you identify to the client that this isn't very good, and there's work to be done, there's either an opportunity, one, to win some training or some upskilling to that client. That's the first one. But I see more and more at the moment that the client says, well, why don't you just do it for me? Why don't you just take the bookkeeping off me? Because we're not very good at it. We're not actually probably going to get any better. Sounds like you guys know what you're doing far greater than us. And actually, we're willing to take that off our plate for you to have it. So I'm now seeing these indirect returns on investment, because it's like, well, we're now pointing out a bit more proactively than we were that this isn't very good. So I was working with a firm, and what they were doing is they were, or they're still doing it now, but the way they started was they were looking at the poor records clients who were managing their own bookkeeping, and they were just seeing it once or twice a year at best, telling them it wasn't great, offering them some training or giving them a free hour upskilling session, and then checking in 6 weeks later and then going, actually guys, this isn't improving. It's going to either be a bigger bill at year end because we're going to have to sort all this out, or do you just want to get on top of it now and I can give you these quarterly outputs, which will be far better for you. So I think there's going to be great opportunity going forward where people will say, oh, do you know what? Actually, just take it off us and do it
yeah,
properly.
we've seen that as well. We've seen people who've been excited to use it, and then so many months have passed, they've forgotten everything, so they just say you do it. And because the cloud brings so many benefits with improved, quicker processing of things, we can reduce our fees. So it's not like we have to charge as much as we used to do when we were using the slow desktop systems. So it can be affordable as well now. Yeah,
and because you can dip in and have a look, 2-3 times a year and see how it's going. You can do that sanity check without the client even knowing. Yeah. So, they could be on a hit list and they don't even know they're on a hit list, that we're going to have a look at those in the next quarter, because there's good opportunity for us to do more with that particular client. And we know they've got good turnover, they're having a good year. Like, is that an opportunity? But also the flip side, you see people who maybe not having a great time, and can we be proactive with those guys before it really hits the fan, as they say.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is just a bit of fun, really, Jo, because I always think that we all suffer from a bit of ecosystem FOMO. So it might be you used to, or you might still like some of the ecosystem. How has it been for you, that initial engagement of working with the ecosystem and seeing all these? I think it probably works out 200 a year or something we've seen come on the scene. How's that been for you? Have you had FOMO points, or is that less so now?
Yeah, less so. At the beginning, I felt like we were quite behind and we were rushing to catch up. But now I think we're in a really good position where we understand the apps that we want to offer to clients and the ones that are going to be most useful. So we're more focused with investing our time in those. And it is easy to feel FOMO because there's so much out there. You could just suck it all up, couldn't you? Get all the knowledge, but you just haven't got the time for it. So you've got to realise that you can't be an expert in the hundreds of apps, but you can be an expert in those ones that you've chosen that you think are going to be the best for your clients, the most useful, the most time saving. Yeah,
I think as well with that, you've got the when you're looking at an app and you're thinking, oh, that could be useful, you've got to be thinking, is that useful for one client, or is it going to be useful for a large percentage of my client base? And I think that's the difference of what you should spend your time on. If it's going to be something which is going to be part of your core app stack, and a good percentage, 20-30% of your clients will probably be interested in what it could do and the problem it solves, that's worthwhile. If you've got an immediate problem with a bakery and you're looking at a bakery, but you've got no other bakers on your radar that you're going to work with, it's like, how much time do you invest for free in that? Because if you don't work with the bakery for another 2 years, that system's probably moved on tenfold in that period of time. So it's picking your battles, I think, isn't it, as well, with the ecosystem?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I've heard of all sorts of weird and wonderful apps, and sometimes, like you say, you have to let the client go and do that research if that's what they want, and if it's so specific, and let the onus be on them to do that. And we can recommend the ones that can maybe slot in to do the purchase invoice processing or the CRM system or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think if the client wants a bit of support with that, and it's a specific app and you're unlikely to come across it again, there is some, there's definitely an opportunity to work with them on a service, on a cost to help them understand it a little bit more. But I think you're right.
To pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. If they're willing to pay for it. So I think there's an opportunity there to understand maybe the integration with the accounting to check it's going to come across okay. But in terms of the day-to-day, how it's going to work, the client's probably best placed. But if you've got 100 bakeries and you want to learn it and understand how you can help them, then that makes perfect sense to get involved with that and maybe do invest a little bit of time. So I think you've got to pick the battles. But I think the FOMO is going to get worse, if I'm honest, because if you do a bit of work with Shopify, as an accountant, like their ecosystem's amazing, and even I still get a bit of FOMO, and I'm like, wow, there's so much stuff going on there. So I think this ecosystem is going to increase, but I think you guys have done a really good job in picking a select group of apps which are going to service a lot of your clients and understanding the business problems they solve, and then you've built some good services then to offer those and build those out, which has been, I think, a really good thing. But yeah, I think you get to a point where you're just weighing off a little bit of the FOMO of, oh, there's another app. And actually, when you're involved in these communities and the forums, there's normally a couple which rise to the top and everyone's talking about them. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that is worth a little bit of a look anyway.
Yeah, like you say, you've still got a responsibility to understand the integrations if you're going to do a zero conversion, for example. But you've got to weigh your time up.
Yeah, definitely. Right, Jo, that's been mega useful. Thank you very much for your time and your insights. It's been great to have you on board and have a chat with you.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to talk to you.
No worries. So, Jo, I think you're on LinkedIn. If anyone wants to connect up and ask you a little bit more.
Yeah.
But thanks a lot, and I hope everyone's enjoyed this session. Cheers, Jo.
Thank you.